Welcome, one and all, to this week's Chroma Team Roundtable. I'm joined today by none other than Osbrah, Victor, and Luke. We are going to be talking you through the market, giving our hot takes, cold takes, and everything in between on what we're seeing in the crypto market and other markets, I should add. Today's topics include Bitcoin. We're obviously going to be talking about the dump we had last week, all the liquidations. It was another mass liquidation event. It feels like we're getting one of these every 2 weeks at this point. But I think it was like 2.7 billion or 2.8 billion dollars of positions liquidated, something like 500 or 600,000 positions taken out, and Bitcoin briefly went underneath 60K. I think a lot of exchanges touched 59.6, 59.7, that kind of level. So we're going to be talking about that, getting revised opinions from the panel as to where they think the market is, and what we are looking forward to in 2026, because now a lot of high time frame levels have been broken and a lot of structure is shifted. Talking about potential bottoms, if and when we see those bottoms forming, and what levels those bottoms will form at. We're also going to be talking about Michael Saylor and Tom Lee. They've been taking a lot of heat over the last couple of weeks, last week especially. I've never seen so much criticism of Saylor on my timeline before, but I guess as prices go down, people look for scapegoats. They look for people to blame, people to make them feel better about their own, potentially their own lack of performance. Or maybe this is not the opinion of the panel, but this is how it seems to me. So yeah, a lot of goofing on Sailor, a lot of goofing on Tom Lee, and at one point each of them was down almost $10 billion. Yes, you read that correctly, $10 billion on their respective BTC and ETH investments. So we'll talk through that as well. I'll also be getting some opinions on the precious metals market. Maybe not quite as much action this week compared to last week, but certainly some things to talk through. And I also just want to briefly touch on SBF, and we might include that in the Sailor and Tom Lee section, given that he is a kind of a crypto main character. But first, I'm going to go to Osbrah. I see you have your camera on, looking nice and dapper as always. What's your take on Bitcoin right now? What's your take on the crypto market? Obviously, we briefly went below 60K last week. Has anything changed for you now versus, let's say, weeks previous, or even last month? How are you viewing this price action?
Yes, things have changed clearly. I had a bias before the dump that led us sub 80, sub 78K. Because simply because the structure was still bullish. I'm gonna share my screen at the same time. It's gonna be better to illustrate my thoughts. Just opening the good layout, perfect. And here we go. Just let me know if you can see the screen. It should be good now. So basically, as long as we held the level around, like the blue box was the best case scenario. If you were bullish, so it was around 84. Then we had the 74K, 73K, basically that was the price where the rally following the Trump winning the elections in 2024 started. So that was my line in the sand. I was not against a sweep of the lows here, just to tag a little bit below and then bounce. But as you can see, it's not what happened. We have no SFP, nothing bullish at all. In fact, we just have a lower low. We just have a new low. So obviously my bias have changed. We lost key levels on all time frames. So I know some people would be like, yeah, but now the risk reward is better if you're trying to find a good long. Yes, that's true, but the structure tells you that everything is bearish now. So I'd be looking for shorts unless we at least reclaim the level just here that you can see.
Osprey, is there something wrong with your trading view screen? It's like very dull.
It's
The
wait, maybe it's the
brightness is.
HDR. Let me just remove it. It's flickering, no?
It's not that it's flickering. It's very. It looks like the brightness is down to 10% or something like that.
Yeah, it was the HDR. It should be better now. Is it?
No change that I can see.
No change. Okay, wait, just refreshing. Let me know if it's good.
Is everyone seeing that,
On
or is it
my
just me? Yeah.
on my end, it's bright. Like it's really.
I think
Right.
it's just the background color. It's that dull gray. It's like the
It's de-
skies look in London all the time.
it's definitely
It's
not
like
just the background color. No,
highlight.
there's something wrong.
Nah,
Like,
it's something because on my end I see it like this. I posted it in the chat. This is what I see.
yeah, no,
Ah,
it's
So it's
5 shades darker than that.
yeah. Is it fine or maybe I can just go to make it a bit better? Sorry about that. Let me know if it's good.
That's better.
Yeah, that's slightly better. My eyes are burning, but it's fine. So yeah, the things have changed basically just because of the structure. Also, something that is weird in, and it's something that I touched yesterday with Omar from Fineco during the stream, is that if you look at indices, right, at S&P, for example, we're gonna go on H1. Where was the all-time high? All-time high was just here. So you clearly see the difference. We're like 0.4% away from all-time high, and on Bitcoin we are much more down, like 50, almost 50% away from all-time high. So that also tells that there is very little to no interest in the crypto market, and in Bitcoin as well. So yeah, unfortunately bearish. Quite disappointed to see how crypto is treated compared to indices, compared to equities. Everything is at all-time high. Even Nikkei now is at all-time high following the elections, the Sunday elections. So yeah, bearish, and I'm just looking at either we do a bearish retest here around 75, to short the market again, or if we manage to flip, if we manage to properly flip that level, then I would allow myself to be optimistic. I wouldn't say bullish, but optimistic at least.
Okay, I
That's my
like
new
that.
BTC.
And I am going to come back to you on the indices question because, one of the main questions, issues of the day has been, whether or not crypto is lagging versus other markets, particularly indices and precious metals. So we might get a take from you. That's better. Whatever you've just done there is you fixed it.
I just closed the stream and started it again.
Sometimes, man, it's
That's
the
it.
old turn it off, turn it on again trick. Victor, want to get your take now on BTC on the crypto market. Has anything changed regarding your read on crypto over the last 7 days?
Um, Ironically, I kind of flipped from bearish to bullish. I'm gonna share my screen when Osbrah decides to
Let
stop
me.
sharing
Yeah,
his.
here you
Thank
go.
you. Um, yeah, let me go to the weekly time frame and talk through my thoughts. So, you know that I was bearish ever since we lost the weekly structure here, because for me, this is the highest high, second highest high, and this is technically the break of structure. Now, technically, we still were in an uptrend, but for me, this was the moment in time, especially after the 10th of October, that I said, I think Bitcoin is not going to make a new all-time high this year in 2026, like this cycle. I think we're heading into a bear market, and well, yeah, I think now when we dump like this, most of the people agreed that we are in a bear market. And now when everyone is bearish, I don't like to have the same opinion as anyone else. So I'm kind of flipping bullish to some degree. What I mean by this is I don't think we're gonna make a new all-time high this year, but I think that this will be the bottom for at least until Q2, maybe even until Q3. Because usually when price moves in impulses and ranges, right, we know that it's trending 20% of the time, then ranging 80% of it. And that's something that we talk about very often. So now it's time to make a range right here, because we're also back, or we tapped back when at the POC of the range from 2024. And this was this old, long, boring range that lasted from February till November. Now, I hope this time around we don't get such a range, such a long range, but I think at least 6 weeks is a good measure for a range, especially after how, let's say, well we closed the weekly candle. Because, like you said, we tapped below 60K for a while, but then we closed above 70. So that's a nice week. That was a nice buyback. So yeah, I think the bottom is in for the next few weeks, maybe months. But I don't think we go back to all-time high. I think we just establish a range. My bet on where the range high would be like this weekly fair value gap here between 79 and 86K. So I can see a world where we do something like this, and then we put in the range high, and then somewhere in Q2, Q3, we make a new bottom, and that should be like the bottom for the bear market, around 50, 55K in my opinion. And I talked about this, especially after we dumped. I think in price, we are much closer to the bottom than to the top, and I think starting to buy Bitcoin here makes sense from a price perspective, because we're like 60K away from the all-time high, and 60K lower from here would be 9K. I think simply from this perspective, it makes sense to start accumulating Bitcoin at these prices. I'm not buying with all my money, of course, but just starting to throw a few $100 every week, I think it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I want to talk to, I'm going to ask the panel about the DCA investment angle on Bitcoin slightly later in the discussion, because that's something that has become increasingly interesting to me, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners as well, as Bitcoin prices go lower. But for now, I want to go to Luke. Luke, what are you looking at in the Bitcoin chart in particular? Has anything changed about your read after the dump we got to 59K last week?
Sorry, I'm just hold on, mouthful of food.
That's okay.
I forgot to eat before the trading room, so I just ordered, and now I've got food. Yeah, let me just set up the screen share my end. Have I got this? Yeah. So, for me, I'm probably thinking along the same lines as what Victorious and Osbrah are saying. I still think overall, within the next year or so, we are likely to see lower prices. This is just an example. I posted this in my room like last week, that even if we are to see a move down to like say sub 40, 30K again here, it would still remain a very similar kind of bear market to what we've seen in the past. But we are starting to see, I think, what we had last week, with it being just like another proper capitulation. For me, like, the one thing that I didn't really want to do was looking for a long at the 2025 lows, because as I'd explained before, I had this idea that, okay, for a while we front run the level and it looked as though we could bounce and we could get a little bit of a squeeze higher. It didn't play out. We did end up sweeping the lows, but for me, it's more likely at that stage to run, because that's really where you get a lot of people trying to long after taking out the lows. An opportunity to trap them, an opportunity to liquidate them, an opportunity to drop a lot further. So I think that's what we saw last week, was just an overextension of what was a level that a lot of people were trying to trade and a lot of people were trying to long. So it's just a natural liquidation event that happened after taking a big low like that. After that, I think what we've been seeing recently has been fairly constructive. I quite like that we're holding within quite a narrow range after taking out these lows, just without any other lines on the chart here. The structure that we have of having like massive dump down, essentially, I know we're not back at like 78K where this would have recovered the whole thing, but where it really started to get that high volume below 70K, it did recover that, and we're holding around, like, kind of typical. We're holding around 69K, which is just Bitcoin being Bitcoin, loving those meme numbers. As long as we do that for, like, I'd say another week, a few more days, if we can still hold around this area without getting a deep retrace, I do think that there is still a chance that this can start to push up towards these. I'm not saying that we're going to go back into any kind of bull market again, but just looking for a move back up to 78, 80K, something around there, I think could be quite reasonable, in order to, just at that stage probably look for more shorts again. But I think what we're seeing now looks pretty good for starting to look for a position that can get prices a little bit higher. In terms of like DCAing, it's not really. Yeah, we are like 69,420 basically right now as we speak. So yeah, in terms of DCAing, it's not something that I'm looking to do. I think even if this does end up being a really good low, like a bear market low comes in around this area, like the damage has already been done to the chart. I don't think it's likely that we're just going to start like blasting up towards 100k or whatever again anytime soon. So I would prefer to give more time for the market to start to form some structure around here, see what it does over the next few months, because again, like I don't think we're going to just like blast off to new highs. And then if it starts to look stable, similar to what happened like back, I don't know, we start getting a load of like a load more FUD, but price isn't continuing to drop lower, then I think at that stage I'd look more for like longer term holds, longer positions. But again, for me, spot buying isn't really something I do. I have spot, but it's not something I ever really manage. It's just there. And for myself, I more just try to trade level to level, take it each day as it comes. Doesn't matter where price is, whether we're trading at 70k, whether we're trading at 100k, whether we're trading at 30k, doesn't make any difference to me. So yeah, just remaining like, I think medium term, I think we've got a little bit more in the bounce, but long, like higher time frame, I still think we get lower.
Yeah, I
And
mean
think
that's a
that,
fair.
yeah,
Sorry, go on, go on.
yeah. Sorry, I just remembered here. Like I posted this a couple of weeks ago as well before NQ swept these highs, and it's just the similarity in structure. I've gone over this a couple of times before, but the Nasdaq, the S&P. Yeah, I know we made new all-time highs on the S&P, but they said back then that that's likely to pull back. I'm just seeing a lot of similarities in play. I do think that we've got another leg or two lower on both markets, even though indices have been performing a lot better than crypto recently.
Well, let's stay on that topic and let's pull that thread a little bit. What is your take on kind of, I guess, like crypto lagging in relation to equities and what would happen? Because I mean, equities is still pretty much at all-time high. If you look around a few of the charts, I think Osbrah was saying is it the sorry,
Nikkei.
put me out. The Nikkei has put in an all-time high, even with the recent pullback on the Nasdaq, the S&P. I think they're still like within a couple of percent of an all-time high. So it's a curious question and one that I don't have an answer to, but I'm curious whether you do, Luke. What happens when equities gives a proper pullback, like a proper, 10, 15% pullback, and really kind of shakes some guys out of their long-term convictions and long-term positions? What happens to crypto?
I'm not sure if it's like crypto lagging or more so crypto leading, because I mean we topped out in October, and NQ's taken another 4 months, S&P's taken another 4 months, and has still continued to move higher. So it's really hard to whether it's lagging or whether it's leading. If it has been leading, and crypto just being the first thing to break in a system that's starting to break on a wider scale, with gold going crazy, with everything that's going on in Japan, with S&P and NQ looking like there is a distribution in play, but not actually seeing the price follow that yet. It could have just been a case where, yeah, crypto being the most risky of those assets, being the lowest liquidity of all of those assets, is the one that dropped first. Now, what I would look for if NQ continues to fall lower, if gold, like again, gold's being a little bit of an inverse of it, but I do think everything could start to pull back, including the big commodities. It's kind of following what I was like expecting to happen anyway so far on gold. Then what I would look for is a slowdown in the decline of price on Bitcoin and within crypto. So in the same way that it led the market down because of a lack of liquidity, I would like to see the fact that we have already dropped what 40 over 50%, right? At this stage, we've dropped over 50%. That would
Yeah,
start to we'd start to see less of a decline. So whereas NQ might drop quite rapidly, we may just get a situation where we're starting to form, I don't know, like something that looks a little bit more constructive that can get us out of a longer term bear market after that, really.
Yeah, interesting. I want to go back to Osbrah here. Luke mentioned just there that he's not terribly interested in DCAing. I'm curious, do you have a different take on that? And I'll give my opinion afterwards.
Yeah, I have slightly different take. I think during these phases where the market is, I know some people don't like when we say this, but when the market is a bit complicated to navigate through, DCA is a very good thing that allows to be exposed, but at the same time not fully exposed. So you take very minimum risk and you still get an exposure on the market, so you don't miss the train and you don't end up being caught up with FOMO when things start to look better. So I think it's very good thing, and at these levels, it's interesting. I think we can think about people like Rego, for example, that has an insane story with DCA. I think it also depends the levels. Like starting to DCA, for example, when Bitcoin dumped from 126 to 120 doesn't really make sense. That was not a significant drop. However, now that the price has been divided by two, I think it, it's smart to start being exposed to at least Bitcoin. Some altcoins also at interesting levels, but it depends if you believe or not in the altcoin market. Still, maybe a few can be very interesting, like Sol, for example, maybe Ethereum, if you also believe in ETH. Hype, we mentioned Hype a lot lately because of the very good performance compared to the rest of the market. That would make sense, in my opinion, for the reasons I said. So to sum up, because it allows yourself to be exposed, but at minimal risk. You don't get fully naked when you do DCA properly, if I can say
Do
it
you,
this way,
do
like
you have
sympathetic.
levels, or do you have levels for Bitcoin in particular at which it becomes an automatic buy for you?
At these levels, if you remember what I said during the last roundtable, and things go very fast, I said like around 70K, 73K, it's an automatic buy. So that's a good level, in my opinion, here around 69, 70K to buy a bit. Then, of course, in the 50 range, so between 50, 55, I think it gets interesting. However, I think when you do DCA, you should also have some levels where you stop buying automatically. It means when things start to be too ugly, it's pointless to waste your capital trying to buy when potentially it will be another 2021, 2023, and 2 years of downside. And it's better to wait because I don't know if you have limited AMO and you have a DCA plan over 3 months and you start to buy now and BTC just goes to 60K in the next 3 months. What if in the next 6 months it goes to 50, 40K? So I think it's a very good question and you need to plan your levels ahead. My opinion, this level, low 50, low 40s, and then stop. Like pointless if we start to go even below 50, to be honest, it would look very bad and price could go even much lower, and that would not make a lot of sense to just automatically buy. And I would wait for like more interesting price like 20K, 15K. If we get there, I'm not saying that I believe we revisit these prices again. Um, but of course, if we go back there, that makes sense again.
Yeah, so I have a slightly different take there. I think if you look at past cycles and kind of measure drawdown from all-time high to the subsequent bear market low. I think in like 2015 it was like 85% or something, and then 2018 it was fuck, I can't even remember. It was like 79%, and then subsequent
From all-time
cycles,
high?
it gets sorry?
From all-time high, you say drop from all-time high?
Exactly, yeah. So I think
Okay.
it's usually in the region of 70 to 80%, and I think it has been diminishing, it has been going down. But I mean, like, let's extrapolate that. Let's do some dubious extrapolation, as Benjamin Cowan says. You're still looking at a kind of a minus 70, minus 65% drawdown from all-time high, and I think that brings us to like sub 40K. It would bring us to like the high 30Ks. Now, I think that if we got high 30Ks from me, anything below 40 for me is an automatic buy. I think personally, if the top is in now, and I think it's becoming exceedingly likely that that is the case, if the 4-year cycle is intact, if the top is already in for Bitcoin, if we see lower prices into the rest of the year, then I think absolutely sub 40 is on the cards. And I think guys who are uh let's say not even guys who are planning on buying here, because that's fair enough, you can start entering here, but I think guys who exclude that idea are maybe going to be in for a rough surprise in Q2, Q3. I genuinely think that those kind of low prices are on the table, and I think that if we get them, I'll be fucking licking my lips and rubbing my hands, because I think that anything under 40 is a pretty much an automatic buy for me. I've famously or infamously had very little Bitcoin exposure in my career. I think that would I would make an effort to change that if we got sub 40. Want to go to Victor. Victor, same question. Are there levels at which you are an automatic buyer of Bitcoin?
I mean, sub 50 is an automatic buy for me. But I think it starts to make sense to buy even like below 70, below 60, because something that I've learned last year was that trying to make the most money possible is a fallacy. Like, it's enough to make good money, you don't have to maximize everything. So if price is, let's say, at 60K, and you think that, oh, I think that it goes to 40K, so I shouldn't buy here, I should wait to only buy at 40K. The improvement that you make is is decent, but it's not as big as like not buying at all right now, because you might just miss it. So I think it makes sense to buy little by little once we drop below 70, 60K. And yes, if then it drops below 50K, maybe even below 40K, then it makes sense to buy more. But being completely sidelined, at least from a mathematical and like statistical point of view, it's not the best idea in my opinion. Because if we are, so the all-time high is now at 127K, right? And if we drop below 63K, that's a 50% drop. Basically, below 63K, you're asking what is more likely to happen, that Bitcoin goes to zero or that it makes a new all-time high. If the answer for you is that it's more likely that it makes a new all-time high ever, then simply buying below 63K is EV plus. Simple from a mathematical perspective. So yes, you might get a better return if you buy at 40K or 30K. That's a no-brainer, but it makes sense mathematically to buy below 63K. And I was looking at previous cycles and like the law of diminishing returns. This cycle, let me share my screen actually, because it will make more sense. That's what I was measuring right now as we speak. The previous cycle from bottom to top was 1800%. And then we had a drop of 77%. Now this cycle from bottom to top was 700%. That's less than twice of that. So it would make sense, I think, even a 50 to 55% drop would make sense at its most extent, just because we are diminishing the return so much from the last cycle to this cycle. Yes, we might see minus 70%, minus 80% like previously, but mathematically, it would also make sense to only drop 55%, and that would be fine. So yeah, that's my take. And I said in my channel, for every week that Bitcoin closes under 70K, I'll buy a few $100 worth of Bitcoin. Because I don't care that much what my buying price is. I just want to be exposed and build a portfolio because I do think that next cycle Bitcoin will go to maybe 150, maybe even 200K. And at that point, it doesn't matter that much if you have bought at 50K or 60K. It's still a very good return.
What happens next cycle? And this is an open question for the panel. This is something
yeah.
I've been thinking about. What happens if next cycle we don't put in an all-time high? What if it's the first cycle that doesn't put in an all-time high? Do you think that is like alarm bells, crypto is a failed experiment, time to exit the market, or is it more like just a natural kind of progression of crypto as it matures and becomes an asset class that more and more people are trading?
It's a very complicated question because even if we do make an all-time high, but what if it's a new all-time high like ETH put this cycle, like barely, not even closing a week above the previous all-time high? Like that would be so depressing. And I think the most like something that we cannot predict is what will fuel the next cycle, because this cycle was fueled by the ETF narrative, by Trump being elected, but we don't know what's going to be there for the next cycle. And if it's something that not a lot of people are excited about, yes, I can see a case where we don't make a new all-time high. But the question is too difficult to answer. I hope it does make a new all-time high, but it's not something that I can say for certain.
I mean, it's all speculation at the end of the day. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be reading too much into our answers here. It's just idle speculation. But yeah, for sure, it's an interesting point to think of in terms of like the catalysts. Obviously, in 2021, we had COVID, we had stimmy checks, we had everyone at home like trying to pick up a new hobby, and in many cases, that hobby was crypto. Then obviously, this cycle we had Trump, the pro crypto administration, getting put into office. We had, ostensibly pro crypto regulation. We had a president that was interested in making America the Bitcoin capital of the world. And we all see how that turned out. Some good came of it for sure, but a lot of bad also came of it. So, I mean, yeah, I guess with these things, it's kind of reliant on the fundamental drivers, the fundamental catalysts that send price higher. And we can't obviously predict what those are going to be. Follow side question: what do we do when Discord starts requiring face scan and ID verification? So I've looked at this. It's a good question. My understanding is that the face scan and ID verification are only for certain things. It's like for viewing not safe for work content and over 18s content, and nothing in Chroma is not safe for work or over 18. So 99% it's going to be fine. You won't have to do that verification thing. However, I do think that Discord are going to roll it back because they've gotten so much criticism, just even for asking for it. So I would be surprised if that measure goes through, but we shall see. I already saw is Jedi on the call? Jedi, I saw your former outfit have already made the choice to transfer over to Telegram, which I think is premature.
Yeah, so they tend to be reactive and not proactive, generally speaking. So that just comes down to, the way they are. I agree. I think it is a little bit premature.
Jedi, have we woken you up? It sounds like you just got up from a nap.
No, not at all, dude. Just been dealing with family stuff. I've got a house full of sick people. My apologies for gate crashing. I think I just wanted to chime in on the question that you asked, which is quite a naughty question to ask. What happens in the next cycle and the rest of it? And I'm going to ask an equally naughty question and ask, what is Bitcoin? What has Bitcoin kind of become? Like we had this idea that it was money, and then along came stable coins and essentially solved that problem in so many ways. And now we've got, the whole transparency thing from a regulatory / transparency thing from, the open ledger system and digital currency, central bank digital currencies coming in. So Bitcoin from that perspective, even though that's what the white paper has stated, has kind of like fallen to the wayside. And then there was an idea that it was digital gold. And based on what I've seen over the last 2 years, is it really digital gold, especially what's happened in the last 6 months? I mean, I don't think so. Is it still early? You could argue, off the back of the digital gold narrative that maybe we're still early and people haven't quite bought into this whole idea. But if BlackRock can't convince the market, and if you know those kind of people can't convince the market, are we really early? So I think it's more important to focus on what is Bitcoin going forward. Is it just kind of like this toy that we speculate on, or does it really have this meaning of hard money and all those really good things that I would love to go and die on that hill? But right now, I'm not seeing that because the market's telling me that it's not seeing it either. So that's my kind of like take on it at the moment. It depresses me to say that because I would have gone and, like I said, I would have gone and been the first one in the firing line to protect Bitcoin from those narratives. But right now, I'm just not seeing it. So, yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's for me, the failed experiment side of things is firmly in the altcoin space. I think if you believe in blockchain technology and you believe that, the tech is here to stay, then the bullishness on Bitcoin makes a ton of sense. The value proposition of altcoins is the thing that it really has been thrown a curveball for me this cycle. And I know people always said it in previous cycles, like, you look at coins from like the 2018 bull market, you look at the likes of like Dash, right? And like Neo, and like coins that did really well and that were in like top 10 and top 5 market cap lists. And then like this cycle, they're kind of nowhere to be seen, or they only get a pump when Dino coins pump. I think that has been it's been thrown into spotlight to an even greater degree this cycle because you had plenty of quote unquote good projects, plenty of good coins with, good teams with solid roadmap with the foundation for success, and these things are like minus 98% from the high, right? So it kind of, you start asking the question, well, why do these projects even need tokens, right? What is the value proposition of all these altcoins? Are there too many altcoins in the market? Is there just not enough capital to be allocated to these coins? What's the intrinsic value of these of these altcoins? And I think in a lot of cases people are kind of left scratching their heads and saying, well, we don't have good answers to those questions, therefore price will continue to go down. And it's bringing me back to the point that we just made, which is kind of discussing Bitcoin and DCAing and buying at logical levels. Like, if there's one thing that the previous 3 or 4 cycles have shown, it's that, you know, there's one coin that you can be pretty fucking sure is going to be here next cycle, and it's Bitcoin, right? If you're bullish on crypto in any kind of a sense, then you're bullish on Bitcoin. It's quite simple as that. If you think that crypto is still going to be around, then you think that Bitcoin is still going to be around. You can't say that about 99.9% of altcoins. And I think that's something that this cycle has really made clear to the vast majority of crypto market participants. I do want to move on now because I'm conscious that we're ripping through the hour at an incredibly fast rate. I just want to talk about Saylor and Tom Lee briefly before we move on from crypto. Obviously, these guys getting goofed on quite a lot. They were down almost 10 billion on their investments last week, briefly when Bitcoin went down below 60, sorry, when it went below 60k, and I think ETH went below 1.9k. Maybe we can confirm that. Yeah. Oh, it went below 1.8. It went to 1760. Holy shit, I didn't even know it
Yeah.
was that bad. So yeah, obviously Tom Lee in particular, I think, has been accused of top blasting the market. His average buy on ETH, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it's over 4,000. Saylor has a slightly better entry on BTC relative to where price is now, but still was scuba diving for quite a long time last week. I'm not sure exactly what his average price is now, but I think we're in or around, yeah, 4,000. He's the worst trader on earth. Well, I definitely have a stronger opinion on Lee than I do on Saylor, but I'm just curious to know what the panel's thoughts are on these guys, because that's one of the conversation topics that I've seen around crypto Twitter this week is like, these guys are idiots, these guys are retards, these guys don't know what they're doing, and yet they are managing, huge AUM. They have tons of conviction that these charts will turn around. Are they running some kind of a master plan that us peasants aren't aware of, or are they just, one of us? They have top blasted the market, and now they are praying every day that that price gets back to their entry. What are your takes on Saylor and Tom Lee?
I could simply say that I think we make too much of a scene regarding the guys that pop up in our feed once in a while. We had, if you remember, we had that famous whale insider on Hyperliquid a few months ago because he had like three or four very good trades in a row that were taken before news. And so people said, oh, this is an insider. He knows his thing. Maybe it's even Donald Trump's son, Barron. And then one day he took a trade and people say, oh, the insider whale opened a massive long. I think it was a massive long or something. He might know something, and then he got fully liquidated. And I'm not sure it's part of a plan, of a master plan to liquidate billions of dollars. So I'm not sure. I just think the the mass need a narrative, need some kind of storytelling, and it's the same with Tom Lee. And as you said, Tom Lee was called a genius, then he was called a retard, and a genius again, and a retard again. When Tom Lee was buying at 3.5, people say, oh, Tom Lee is buying, it might be the bottom. Now the price has been divided by two since his entry. So these guys don't know any better about what the market is going to do. They have the plan, of course. I'm pretty sure they have a plan. I'm not calling them completely stupid, but I think it's our fault in the industry to believe that like these guys are some sort of messiahs coming from nowhere and like giving us because they're so good, giving us free bottom or free tops every time they show up in the timeline. I just think we exaggerate things and we should chill chill about it. They're down bad. I don't know if they care that much for Sailor. I do believe. I think it doesn't care at all about his current unrealized PNL for Tom Lee. I don't know. I never looked at this guy and what he was saying on X. To be honest, I only knew about him because we were talking about it here. But for Sailor, for sure, he doesn't care. For Tom Lee, I have no clue about his plan. But I'm pretty sure that now he's not happy with with his master plan. If it's a master plan, being down like what was the PNL minus 6 billion, minus 8 billion something.
Yeah, it came
I
very
don't
close
think
to
anyone
minus
would be
10.
happy. Yeah, close to minus 10 billions. I don't think anyone will be happy with that. So obviously he might be praying right now. Let's see what happens for ETH. Hopefully it's a bottom here around 1700. Hopefully it was a bottom. However, uh, I'm not sure if we'll get above 4.5 this year. Just like Vic doesn't believe BTC will do a new all-time high this year, and it's very difficult to me to believe if we'll get back above 4,000 if BTC doesn't do a new all-time high.
100%. Curious to know whether anyone else on the panel has a take on Saylor and Tom Lee.
I'm so tempted to agree with Osbrah to the extent that I actually think that there is a certain degree of kind of like gamble there, like anybody else. You know, I don't think it's any different whether someone's taking $100 position or whether it's a $10 billion position. I think the same risks apply. And you've said this numerous times, and it's kind of like the one thing that stays true to me is that Saylor really does believe that, you know, tomorrow the price is going to be $1 million. And he has every right to believe that. And based on what we've seen from Bitcoin over the last 15 years, he's probably right. He's probably going to land up being right about that. Ethereum, on the other hand, I don't know. I think that really is a proper gamble. I don't think that we're going to see a scenario where Ethereum goes to 10 grand if we've seen anything to go by over the last 4 years, actually. Even with, you know, this, I mean, you know what's interesting? Since the advent of proof of stake, Ethereum has been down only. They should have stuck with proof of work. They should have stuck with that narrative, but instead they decided to get clever. And I think things are going to get more complicated once they go ZK, when they go with all the ZK proofs, which I think is the right way to go, but I don't think it's going to do the token any favors. And even with essentially negative emissions. There's way too many people with way too many coins, and no one can actually tell me how many coins there are out there anyway. So I don't think ETH is in for a chance. In fact, I'm quite bearish ETH from a token perspective, but as a protocol level and as a chain and as a security aspect of it, I think we really are in good hands with Ethereum. So I think the price versus the function do not match, and it comes down to kind of your thesis earlier on is like, or rather the question you asked earlier on is, where does value reside in token versus protocol? Well, the value resides in delivery of revenue. The value resides in produce a product that actually does something that really changes the world and then start paying people a dividend equivalent, the same way we do in traditional finance. The lessons of traditional finance have been learnt, but crypto decided to try and reinvent it, much to their demise, and therefore most tokens, if not all of them, will go to zero at some point.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree with that more. Want to move on now to the final topic, or one of the final topics, which is precious metals. And of course, I am going to go to Osbrah and get your take on particularly gold and silver. What does it mean, this continued weakness? I mean, I saw a lot of posts um, after we got the dump saying that it was, the V-shaped reversal was in store. I think you were of the opinion that the top isn't in. Gold has looked better, arguably, than silver. I mean, we're above 5K, which I think speaks a lot to gold strength. Silver looks slightly worse. It's actually trading now below the level it was after the 31st of January dump, or the 30th of January dump, whenever that was. But I'm curious to know what your take is, and whether or not your opinion has changed about the great metals to crypto rotation that we're still waiting for.
Yeah, I don't. First, I will just stick to what I've been saying and writing in the Discord and on my socials. I don't think the top is in for precious metals. I think that was a correction that was needed. Allow me to share my screen. Um, Good. I think that was a correction that was needed because it was highly, highly, highly speculative. We had a lot of longs, people that just kept buying and buying and buying, and we needed that flush to be back to a healthy state for precious metals. If you look at the gold chart, it has nothing terrifying. It doesn't look like a bearish chart in my opinion. However, I do agree with Luke. I was talking with excess as well this morning. That level needs to be reclaimed if we want any upside. If we want to make a new high or something, that level needs to be flipped. But on the other end, for pessimistic or bearish investors, that level needs to be broken also to enter bear market territory. So I think as long as we stay, we might range. Maybe we just range like this and then take a decision in a couple of weeks or in a couple of months. But for now, things look okay. If you look here, this when we had the double top after all the people queuing to buy gold in physical stores, then we had that range, if we can say, like we had a mini range inside a bigger range here. Then we initiated a rally again, and it was from October to end of November, so basically a month and a half. So who knows, maybe in a couple of weeks we're gonna print a new all-time high. That's my bias. I'm gonna repeat what we said yesterday during the stream with Fineco as well. Fundamentally, things haven't changed at all for metals, at least for gold. Silver, as you said, it's a bit more complicated, but also the speculation was crazier on silver. Also, it was impacted by the new CME margin rules that triggered liquidation. This time, I think it's legitimate to talk about the manipulation. But yeah, I think fundamentally nothing has changed, and gold will continue to thrive. And the thing that will it's something that was very interesting said by Omar yesterday. the thing that will give the tone for gold is going to be the first speech from Kevin Walsh. If he has like a hawkish tone and he confirms the fears about his stance regarding the dollar and regarding the rates, then I think it's over for gold. However, if he's following Trump's guidance, then gold will continue to have its rally because just think about it once again, and this is why equities are super high right now. DXY is weak, and if you have a guy that comes for the next few years as the Fed's chairman telling you the dollar is gonna continue to be weak, then where do you park your money?
Of course.
Open question, of course.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're dead right. And I think that whole question of store value, hedge against inflation, has really been thrown into the limelight lately, especially with gold and silver pulling back a generational amount in a day. And of course, with all this BTC downside. So that kind of leads me on to the final question, and this is an open one for the panel. What assets, and this can go to any market. This can be alts, this can be Bitcoin, this can be gold or silver or copper or palladium, or this can be stocks, or this can be equities, whatever it is. What assets are you most bullish on for the year 2026? Soybeans, says Equitom. Have you seen how bullish soybean futures are? Don't fade the soybean market, man.
Defense, I would say defense stocks. Defense stocks.
Can you give me an example of a defense stock?
Yeah, sure. Mitsubishi, for example, because we talked about Japan. Mitsubishi could be a good one. We have also Thales in Europe. If we look around us, this kind of stocks, because we are entering a narrative where countries are trying to, like, we enter in more protectionism. Basically, a lot of elections are being won by far right in a lot um, of the Western countries, the most important ones, like the USA, of course, Japan now more recently. In Europe, you have more and more uh, traction. Yeah, Italy as well, for the far right, and far right is into these things, protectionism, defense, etc. So and we've seen all the tensions also raising in the world, and the governments have stated that they want to increase the budget in these sectors. So I think it's something we can that we can look at, and we can monitor. Yeah, defense and military stocks.
Interesting. Victor says RAM, Veslin says bullets, GPUs.
Yeah, I just saw a
Yes.
report that Nvidia reportedly is not going to produce any more GPUs for retail and like gaming until 2027. So we had the craziness with RAM last year. Maybe we do get the same thing with GPUs this year. Well, I hope not, for the sake of the gaming industry, but you asked what the best investment could be, and GPUs could be one of them. I don't know how you trade that, but yeah.
Interesting. Jedi, Luke, any answers to that question?
Nothing really from me, but that's generally just not my style, because I would just trade rather than like looking at what narratives are or what's going to go on a run.
You're bearish on everything, Luke. You're bearish on life.
Not necessarily. It's just I wouldn't be interested in anything like in those kind of things. So I'm not bullish on the stuff I like to trade, but that's cool for me. So I can just take more shorts than longs, or just trade both ways. It's for me it's just a day-to-day thing. So I never really have that kind of outlook so much.
Makes sense. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think Luke, I'm going to put you to task there, because there's got to be some kind of long-term investment plan that you have got going, and we'll get it out of you eventually. But from my side, it's I don't really see kind of myself having an edge at the moment. So like on the short term stuff, I wish I had kind of like the skill set that Luke and Oz and some of the guys in chat have. So I'm kind of just watching, and then from a long term perspective, it's kind of like what am I doing from like kind of like a foundational level investment? It's kind of like old school, kind of like ETF style investments, kind of locally, and then real estate as well. Whether it's student accommodation, whether it's commercial. I think those are really good bets. And if you want to look at kind of like the stocks and the more volatile stuff and the more liquid stuff, then I don't think you can really go wrong in terms of just watching what is performing long term well, whether it's gold mines, whether it's the likes of AI tech like Nvidia and the rest of it. So I mean, I have exposure to that kind of stuff, but those are all long term investments that I don't have any plan to sell in the next 10 years kind of stuff. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
That's awesome. Yeah, Osbrah asking me what I'm most bullish on. Unironically, unironically bullish on BTC. I think that I do not like I'm not the kind of guy who believes in V-shaped reversals, especially if it's a proper bear market bottom. I think we've seen, just open a high time frame chart and look at Bitcoin bottoms. They are not quick and violent spikes down followed by new all-time highs the following month. They are long, they are slow, they are boring, they are choppy. They force traders to capitulate, to give up on the industry. We're nowhere close to that yet. I think if this is a bottom, it's going to take the remainder of the year to show itself, and potentially even longer than that. We will have plenty of time to buy, and I do think that, as I said earlier in the chat, if we get these kind of low prices that I am thinking are very likely, in fact, sub 40K, then I think it's going to be extremely exciting to gain that level of exposure. And there's going to be altcoins as well. Like, we mentioned being bullish on the perpdex meta, like bullish on hype, bullish on LIT, bullish on DIME. The thing is, if you believe that those tokens will trade at higher prices when BTC finds its footing and the market rebounds, you're getting them at a, in some cases, 90% discount. And that's very exciting. Like I said many, many times before, true money in this market is built through buying coins that are severely undervalued in a bear market and riding them to new highs in a bull market. And while that hasn't exactly played out for a lot of coins this cycle, I still think the paradigm is the same, which is that strong coins will do well. And if you can get involved in those projects early, you will make a lot of money with very little effort. But we are coming on to 5 past the hour now, so I want to thank our panel, as always, Victor, Osbrah, Jedi, and Luke for joining us for this discussion. Thank you very much to everyone who came today to listen to half the team, apparently sick, talk through the markets. But yeah, appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys giving us your time as always. And we will be back next week with another edition of the Chroma Team Roundtable. Until then, try not to get liquidated, stay safe, and we will see you next time, boys. Thank you very much. Bye bye.